Galaga 88 would be the next installment after GAP Plus, and will be the final game that we will be covering for the Galaxian Chronicles. Released in Japan in '87, there have been quite a few improvements done on the graphics and how much more detail it is in the backgrounds. There's also been a bit more variety of enemies and ships that have been added as well. Sadly, like GAP Plus, not many arcade units were made and never made its way to Western shores. It wouldn't be until later in '89 when this game would be released for the TurboGrafx 16 console in the West, titled as Galaga 90, Game Gear handheld in Japan as Galaga 91, and in Europe as just Galaga 2. Right, let's get to the gameplay. Although similar to that of the original Galaga, it's a bit more complex and difficult this time around. It's also no longer endless, as there is actually an end to this game. Surprise, surprise. There are a total of 29 stages distributed through 8 worlds, or dimensions if you will. The challenge stages are also still intact, as you have one at least in each world, with the exception of the 3rd and 8th. So at the start of the game, you have a choice between starting with a single ship and 2 extra lives, like usual, or this time you could start with a dual ship and 1 extra life. Your choice, but if you do decide to go dual, this brings us to one of the new features this game has to offer. Remember how some of the Galagas have a capture beam that can capture your spaceship, if you let it of course, or by accident? Well, apparently it's gone through an upgrade to where it can now capture dual ships. So, if in the case that happens, if you're successful in freeing your dual companion with this last ship that you may have left, you will then combine into a much bigger spaceship that can do a triple shot. This will prove very useful, especially in future levels. Speaking of which, in some levels there are also crystals that you can destroy that can give you canisters. These canisters will help you warp ahead to other dimensions should you gather enough. If you can last long enough and make it to the last stage, there is a huge Galaga boss you will face. Once you destroy him, you actually get an ending that might seem a bit strange. You'll have to see for yourself. The Galaxian games would go on to have a number of re-releases, and even some revamped versions of Galaga, with many different ways to play them now, whether it's by arcade cabinet, console, PC, handheld, or whichever. There's not a reason to not give any of these games a try. You never know how much fun you could really have with them. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the Galaxian Chronicles. Leave a comment if you wish, letting us know what you think, and as always, keep the arcade suggestions coming. Until next time, we'll see you next game.